This is a cheap, low profile aluminum dual plane intake for small block Chevys that I got off of eBay. And I'll be unboxing and inspecting it in this video. And later I'll be comparing it to a higher profile RPM dual plane that I got earlier. Now, first off, looking at the packaging, I think it's pretty basic. I mean, this one over here had nice foam packaging. This one, I don't know so far. I mean, there's a nice hole in the box over here. I don't really feel any foam. You can see it's kind of beat up here, or it's been whatever. And over here, I got part of the intake sticking through a little bit. You can see a little bit of aluminum right there. I think that, yeah, that feels like aluminum to me. So, I think this is the bottom. Let me flip it over real quick and we'll open it up. More damage. Not a big deal. I do see some foam in there, it looks like. Well, anyway, let's open this sucker up. Careful on the top in case the packaging is poor, and I don't want to scratch the pad if it's right there. A little bit of foam. Oh, come on. Yeah, that's like nothing. I like this spray foam packaging of the other intake much better. You see? Conforms and protects it better than this. Now, this intake was actually, at first, when I first saw it, was $10 more than that intake, which I believe is around 120, 25-ish. But then they dropped the price on this, and I haggled them a little more down, because they'd make it, you know, or best offer or something, or make an offer, whichever the option is. And I got, for I think, around 120-ish, so just a little below that one. So, I mean, you'd think that lower profile intake would be cheaper anyway, so it kind of makes sense. Alright, right off, packaging is meh. We got our adapters, because this is a non-Vortec intake. This is for older engines. So these are the TBI head adapters, you know, the center bolts. You can kind of see right there, the oval holes. So, let's pull it out of the box. Again, poor packaging. That's why it was poking through in the bottom. That spot on the intake. Okay. Makes sense now. Get that out of the way. Okay. See if I can do this one-handed. Probably not. Yep, one second. Set you down. And I almost dropped you on the ground. Stay. There we go. Plastic bag. Nothing special about that. Alright. So this is the low profile intake. It does have the square Holly flange, which it's kind of rough looking. I mean, it looks like it's been like Scotch-Brite surfaced. I mean, it's like that really fine scratches, so it's not polished or nothing. Like you see over here, this is more machine surface. This has been touched up. I don't feel any imperfections, really. And it's nothing big. I'll check out the flatness later. Overall, it looks like a nice intake. You got your front coolant ports, some rear coolant ports, which actually has this passover I saw online. I wasn't sure if it would actually be that when I got it. So there's a crossover for the coolant in the rear, which is something you don't see too often. On certain Corvette intakes, you see that, like some of the older ones, and in the TPI one, there's a crossover, but not the F-body intakes. They didn't have that crossover for some reason. I don't know what the deal is with that. I like having the rear intake ports because it makes bleeding the engine much easier. Bottom side, typical casting, nothing special. Again, the intake flanges but they've been touched up. There's that Scotch-Brite type like surface. You know, I've cleaned some of those something like this. You know, that's the kind of finish you get when you do something like this, kind of. But it looks like they used a larger one just when you run across it. There's no like really pattern to it. So I don't know. Not ideal, but I'll check it with a straight edge just to be sure. Ports are, kind of roughish. Well, look at that casting dot in there. Get my light. Where is it? Right there. That's a big old sucker in there. That's of course the bowl hole right there. See? Yeah. So, gotta be careful not to punch through that and have an actual hole. What else? This side. Overall, the casting appears, quality. I mean, it's better than I've seen on Edelbrock intakes. I mean, Edelbrock intakes, the core shift. Got some wood right here. I've seen lots of core shift on Edelbrock intakes right here, and it took me quite a bit of work to kind of, work out the grooves and smooth things out. I mean, it's not the prettiest I've seen, but it's pretty decent, I think. Right there's a little bit of a gouge in the bottom of that. Take the light off so you can actually see it. Oh, right there. Bam, look at that. Whew. I just noticed that. Man, that was a hard hit. That is shipping damage. That is... yeah, that's right there. That's that end of the box. Well, I'll be contacting the eBay merchant, seeing what they can do about that. Either maybe get a replacement or return it or something, maybe exchange. Let's see what else. It's got the bosses for if you want to run nitrous. Not sure why you would with such a smaller intake, but I mean, hood clearances and such, I guess. Some people would. And this is a recommended RPM of 5,500 max. Whereas the intake over here, the higher profile, is a 6,500. Oh, do we have the pattern on the floor? Yeah, we have the kind of the Eddie style pattern, not the different other pattern. So, anyways, we'll get that one out and compare here in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and do the basic checks of the threads and other stuff. I mean, that's a real bummer there with the damage. Yeah, they were here. It's not so bad on the top side, not so noticeable. Definitely noticeable on the bottom. Again, right there. Man, that is not cool. I mean, if you had to run this intake, it's not a deal killer. You could drill it out, and there's still some meat there. I mean, it's not perfectly flat right there, probably anymore. But this is not a really critical area, super right on this edge. This will matter right here if it's still flat around here. So, I don't know. Gonna have to do some more inspecting, definitely. You can't really tell by... I think the second. You can see it's raised right there on the end, but past it probably is fine. So, needs further inspection. Anyways, let me get my bolts and nuts out. It's bolts and plugs out, for the NTP ports. And I'll inspect this sucker and let you know what I find. Alright, so here's what I found. We'll start off with the threads. Your basic bolt threads are all good. The 1/2 inch NTP is good enough. The 3/8 NTP, the pipe threads. First, I want to note all pipe threads have a slight taper, so depending on how they're tapped, some are better than others. And I often found this, especially with my 3/8, you only get like a turn or so, and it's tight. So which I don't like. I prefer to get a couple turns. You can see right there, just this one barely starts. That's all you get. So that one right there, I would tap a little deeper myself. That's why I have taps. Whereas the 1/2 inch, if I can get started. That's what proved me wrong. Try the other end. You get a few turns on that, no problem. Good start. So, I mean, it's just, you know, a personal preference, and it can also depend on your plug or adapter you're using also. So, I mean, it's just, you know, something that they can't, you know, have a real fine control on, but just something I'm noting. Next, the bolt threads for the carb pad, like you saw that boss we saw earlier that was inside the runner. They're not even tapped all the way. There's quite a bit untapped in the holes. So, I mean, they don't even need that bulge into the runner because they're not even tapped that deep. So, kind of a waste, but, you know, whatever. I mean, the people who cast it, the people who machine it, you know, they're different areas, so whatever. Also, I forgot to point out this does have the heat crossover. You know, it should have been obvious earlier, but, you know, for those who don't know, and there's no EGR, so there's that. On to the other checks, the flatness. This checks out good enough. The pad checks out great. I mean, it's, you know, I checked it with the, you know, the smallest checker I have, and it's flat. I mean, it doesn't look perfect, but honestly, I've cleaned up carbs with those before. Sorry, intakes with those before, and that's fine. I mean, it's just not what you expect. You expect a smooth machine finish from a brand new intake, not this. But it's fine. Now, on to the other side. Let me flip this over here real quick. Yeah, that's the damage over there, so we'll turn it around too. I normally, to be honest, I don't check the flanges for flatness because often I like to use a gasket sealer on both sides, and I will use, you know, a thickerish gasket. So I mean, it's going to conform if it's not flat. I'm not super worried, but it's just something I want to note because, again, this is a brand new intake. You expect to be good from the start. But like I said, I've often just, you know, cleaned up the sealer or RTV, whatever is on the intake with one of these, or a wire wheel, slapped the new gasket, some more sealer on, called it good to go. But I wanted to check because of that damage. I checked both sides, and here's something that's I want to point out too. If you use a small checker, set that on there. Oh, that looks good. No gap. We're golden. No problem. But when we go to an actual checker that will stretch the entire length of the intake, and I check there's no burrs on the end of this. You see right there? Not so bad. Get that a little lower. Not so bad. But as we get towards the center, look at all that gap. And this side's worse, the damage side. And I checked above the damage. And I checked it along here. Now, I got 10 thousandths on the good side, and on the damage side, I got, I hope I hold the right way. Where is it? Well, this one's just really light. 13. See it right there. So, not ideal. And just to be sure, I went ahead and checked that intake real quick, and that intake is less than 3. I didn't bother going because less than 3 is good enough for the flanges. You know, the pad's fine, but I'm talking about the intake flanges. Again, I like to use a sealer, not RTV preferably, but a gasket sealer and a thicker gasket that'll, you know, make up for it, because oftentimes I don't even check the flatness in the head either, so it's not, you know, it's super high sensitive, I want to say. I mean, as long as you got a good enough seal, unless you're using boost. If you're in boost or something like that, then yeah, you want the best seal you can have. But this is a low profile, cheap intake. I mean, if you're going to boost, you're probably going to not run this intake. And again, intakes or other parts have a torque, you know, procedure or whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure what correct terminology is for, but you start in the center and work your way out. And that's to help conform it. So if you bolted this from the outside, you'd be SOL. If you start in the center it might flatten that out. You know what I'm saying? Flatten out the edges. Same thing with headers and other stuff. You always start in the center and work your ways out. So, like I said, if this was a header gasket, you just tighten the first ones down, then work to the outer ones. And by the way, this is not the correct gasket. This is a Vortec gasket. It's just something I had out here, so I know this is the wrong gasket. But there's that. I think that's all I want to point out. We'll grab this other intake and I'll set up and we'll do a quick comparison here in a few. Okay, I got the intakes all set up. I got them sitting on some 2x4s, kind of like they'd be sitting on the block, because the one has that EGR, it's nice and low, so just sitting on the bench itself, it throws it off. So we can get a good, idea of the height difference. Again, on the back, I have some more 2x4s in the same location. They're on the surface that would be sitting on the block. They're not, hitting anything else. So these are how both intakes would be on an engine. And they look pretty dang close, but when you put a straightish edge on there, see that gap? There is a height difference, though not much. Slide this over so it'll bounce there. That is not much difference at all. Actually, it is barely over a 1/4 inch. See for yourself. And this ruler does not start, at the very end. It's got a little bit of nothing. So see for yourself. Just over a 1/4 inch. And the difference, I believe, between a low profile and higher profile intake is more like only about just under 3/4, like 0.4-ish. So we're kind of missing a little bit of that low profile in this one. I don't know if I would call it a true low profile because of some other things I checked, which we'll get to in a minute. Get this out of the way. Anyways, let's start off with the obvious, less important stuff that I just noticed the differences. For example, here at the front. In this intake, we got these 2 pads. And you can tap this for, coolant, whatever, and this is for the oil fill, the old style. This one does not have that, and does not have that either over here. But this pad right here is tapped, where this one is not. Then you look at the thermostat housing flange. This one's like a minimum. This one's a little more. I mean, it's not a big difference, but interesting. Over here we got this, possibly a pad for a logo if this intake was copied from another company. So, well, you don't have it on this one. But if you notice, the runner right here, and this little dip down here, see them side by side there? So in my opinion, this runner is the better design versus this right here, which is to accommodate some pad or whatever. So there's that. I don't know. I'll have to compare it to some other branded intakes I have maybe later. The next thing you can notice is the, what are they called? Pads for the tapping for the injectors. These ones are not the same, whereas these ones are nice, even profile. So if you're, however you're doing it, it just is neater in my opinion. I like that how they're in line, whereas you got this one that's up and this one's out. It's just not a big deal. Again, and most people aren't going to use those anyway, but it's just another difference. Let's go to the back real quick. Tube distributor bolts, which is nice because some people prefer one or the other. Only one, but it does have that passage. So if you run out of the back like I do to vent the bleed the block better and just let any air pockets out, technically you only got to bleed one side on this intake because you got that crossover. Whereas this, you'd have to bleed both sides. And they're different size NTP. This is half, this is 3/8. So I prefer the smaller one myself, but whatever. Most places that have self-fittings have, the various adapters, you're going to go quarter to half or quarter to 3/8, whatever you're going to do. They'll most likely have it. What next? Oh, and of course, let's talk about those patterns in the bottom of the plenum floors. This is an older pattern you see in a lot of intakes. This is the more newer you see like in Eddy intakes and other various brands. I can't remember any offhand, but I know I've seen it in other brands, name brands. Which design is more effective? It's as long as you have something there that keeps the fuel from running to the front when you stop or running to the back when you accelerate. That's what those are intended for. I mean, they kind of hold the fuel. That kind of the fuel that doesn't flow well. Drops out. So it's not it kind of have time to re-atomize. Better so with the heat crossover, which these both have. But so that would that's more just drivability, not so much performance. But it's nice they both have them. I mean, if you have a carbide burr, which I have one around here somewhere. Doesn't matter. If you're a long carbide burr, you can add that stuff yourself anyway, so it's not deal killer if they don't have it. But it is nice. It's a nice feature. As far as size, they appear to be similar until you measure the depth. So we check out this one right here. We go off of that little feature on the bottom, make sure we're on that. And we go to the other intake. Same thing, we're on that. You can see right there. That's quite a bit different, deeper. Same thing for the deep end. If you were adjusted all the way down, we're there on the fab. Again, we're on that. And again, it's deeper. About a quarter inch deeper on both of these plenums. Which is odd that, this is supposed to be the low profile intake, but the plenums are deeper than the higher profile intake. So that's just, I would not say this is a true 5500 rating based on that and the difference. I would say they're both very similar. I mean, they're going to be good to 6,000 plus. I wouldn't call them either of them a true low profile or and I wouldn't call this one a true low profile intake. It's just slightly lower. But there's that. The differences they are what they are, and I don't know. I gotta contact the merchant, see what's gonna happen. Maybe I'm returning this intake, maybe I'm exchanging it, and I get the one that will unbox that real quick. Once I hear back from him, we'll wrap this video up. Oh, and I might compare it with that Eddy intake real quick or some other brand. But we'll see. I gotta see how long this video is so far. Another quick difference I forgot to mention. The low profile intake has more of a pronounced EGR. You can even see it in the plenum right there. Whereas this one, just interesting. Also, I forgot. The adapters are pretty much the same thing. Just one has a larger bag than the other, but same amount, same style. They're just adapters. This video is going to be forever long. And can't finish the video, of course, without a gasket mock-up. But while setting up for this clip, I noticed two more small dings on the intake. Right there, and over here. Of course, they're not a big deal, but you can see right there, it's been banged around some, and dinged up. I'll have to file that down a little bit. It's not a, I don't think it really would matter too much. I mean, the gasket's thick enough, whatever you're going to use, and it's well far enough away from the port. So, same on the other side. Not a big deal, just more cosmetic. This one you can definitely feel. So that one definitely, hit that with a file real quick. No big deal. Anyways, onto the gaskets. Now, a 1204. We line up with the coolant ports. It's always difficult to do this one-handed. There, and we'll get them both lined up. Oh, come on, quad right here. It's caught up on the intake. Oh, this clip is being too long. Anyways, coolant ports lined up good enough. You can see that the intake ports are not bad. You could use a 1204, but you're going to have, if you line up with the coolant ports, you're going to have overhang on the top. And if you shift it up, your coolant ports will be off a little bit, but you'll be, have a better alignment on the top and have a little bit of a lip on the bottom. So, not ideal, not the gasket I would choose, but it will work. Now, there's still plenty of, gasket material on the top and bottom, even though the ports are a little too tall. Now, a 1205 fits much better. It's, you can just run this gasket, no problem. Maybe clean up on the outsides a little, but not much. It's if this is the size gasket for your head, and then the alignment's good enough. Generally, I like intakes to be more small size, and then you correct them yourselves or make them match your heads. The alignment's never great. So, something else, I wouldn't really call this intake a standard low profile intake or lower RPM, but it is what it is. It's a decent intake for the cost. Well, it's been a couple days. Had a message back and forth with the merchant, but we came to an agreement. He offered me $50 off plus tax, so basically I decided to keep it, and I got about 75-ish with tax total, shipped for this intake, which is a pretty good deal. I mean, I only plan to use it on a beater project, so you can't beat $75 for an intake. And of course, there's that one issue with the one bolt. Where it got smashed. This side, yeah, right here. And I can just, file that down so it's flat, and drill it out, or using a carbide board, open that hole up a little more. No big deal. I'll use a washer on the other side, and it'll be good. Of course, sealer on the flanges, definitely sealer, because they're not super flat. I may try and do something, DIY, but I'm not super worried about that. As long as I use a thicker gasket, not like a super thin one, I think I'll be good. I mean, if you think this intake's bad, check out my Speedmaster intake video. That thing was a mess. Well, I still got it. Anyways, go ahead and check out my other intake videos, my intake prep video, and so on. I drilled the Vortec intake, and I was gonna do more comparison, but I checked my time, and this video is long enough. It's long enough. So if you want to see more intake comparisons of these intakes to like some name brand intakes, let me know in the comments, and when I get time, I'll make that video. But for now, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Keep it real.